My daughter Ori listens to Harry Potter on an incessant loop. I read the entire series to her, and when we turned the last page, she said, "Again! Let's read it again!" I downloaded all the books on Audible for her. Now Ori can visit the world of Harry Potter whenever she likes. When we're in the car, Ori disapparates out of the way back and apparates into Hogsmeade to drink butterbeer with her pals Hermione, Ron, and Harry. Sometimes, late at night, I hear her listening. She has trouble sleeping, and so she turns on her iPod and jumps into the Flu Network and travels to Hogwarts, where she practices her Patronus charm in a room of requirement with her friends until she is tired and comes home to sleep. Ori doesn't visit all the books. I've noticed she turns away from some of the latter, darker books. She knows that what has been written cannot be unwritten, but that does not mean she needs to hang out in that section of the series, so she doesn't. My mother also lives in the world of imagination. I wish I could listen in on her soundtrack as easily as I can Ori's, but I cannot. My mother has Alzheimer's, and although physically she lives a mile from my house, I'm not sure where she dwells. If she too is caught up in an unending loop, I hope it is one of our many trips to Jones Beach. My sister and I jumping over waves, squealing as the salt water catches us, splashing each other with delight. Mom is reading a book, relaxing in the sun, the smell of coconut sun oil, the taste of sand-crusted peanut butter sandwiches, and the cold fizz of Tab. Some Alzheimer's patients are belligerent, angry, scared. Others are happy, seemingly content. I am fortunate that for now my mother is happy. I don't imagine this is a choice. More likely, it's just what loop your brain is stuck in. Sadie, my older daughter, and I take Boogie out for dinner every Thursday night. We went to Smashburger last week, and my mother pronounced her spinach, goat cheese, cucumber topped burger the best burger she had eaten in her entire life. My mother doesn't know what she had for breakfast this morning, let alone recall the long lines of burgers she has eaten. This is the upside of Alzheimer's, and she goes with it. To her, everything is the best ever. I've taken to asking my mother questions like, "Mom, tell me something." "What kind of thing?" she asks. "Anything," I say. "I just want to hear your voice." "Aren't the leaves beautiful?" she says, pointing out the window. And Sadie and I launch into a long conversation about Colorado leaves and New England leaves, and how I must really take her east someday to see them. Mom drops out of the conversation. Conversations are hard for her to follow, but she listens. Last week I asked my mother, "Mom, what words of wisdom do you have for us?" And she said, "Wisdom?" And I said, "Yes. What do we need to know?" And she said, "Just enjoy each other. That's all. Just enjoy each other." There was a time when I would have thought her answer trite and gone off in search of a more esoteric teaching. But now I know, my mother is right. That is the most important thing, each other. When Alzheimer's comes for you, it demands that you downsize. It starts small, a forgotten sweater, misplaced keys, but eventually you forget a meeting. A vital phone call goes unmade, and soon Alzheimer's takes your job. Then your driver's license, your house with the table on which you fed your children, your favorite books with notes scrawled in the margins, too complicated now. Then your activities go one by one as you forget the rules, and then names of people drop out until only a very small circle of recognition remains. My mother has downsized to this truth. The most important thing is each other. Soon, that too will be gone. Ori disappears into the world of Harry Potter, but she always comes back. My mother, on the other hand, is slowly, truly disappearing. It occurred to me the other day that what my mother is teaching me with her illness is also the central lesson of Yom Kippur. We cannot always control what life hands us, All we can control is what we do with it. The raw, painful truth. Yom Kippur is the holy day of raw, painful truth. We are asked to come to this day unmasked, in white. That is why on Yom Kippur, makeup is prohibited. So too is fancy clothing, jewelry, perfumes, food, water, and electronics. We are meant to come here vulnerable, unmasked, unadorned, without illusion or distraction. The rich and the poor, the healthy and the sick, the successful and the broken, we all stand as equals. Tonight, we are meant to face a frightening truth. The prayer Unatana Tokef asks the question, who will live and who will die? This can be heard as an inventory. Last year, we lost Steve Meyer's mother, Larry Rosen's sister, among others, which is startling enough. But I don't actually think that is what is intended. I think the question, who will live and who will die, is meant to be answered, all of us. Some of us will die too young, with much left undone, and others will die too late, with our minds or bodies riddled with disease. How I wish I could give some of my mother's days to someone else, but that is not how it works. But the real question is, faced with this naked truth of our mortality, what should we do? How do we bring meaning to our existence? The prayer Unatana Tokef does not leave us hanging. Rather, it answers its own question. Meaning is found in teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah. Let me explain. Teshuvah, turning. On Rosh Hashanah, we discuss teshuvah as turning back to our best selves, repenting, changing, and forgiving. On Yom Kippur, we broaden this understanding of teshuvah, turning, and think of teshuvah as our ability to react, the ability to effect change in our own lives. On a Rosh Hashanah hike, we were discussing the power of teshuvah, of turning, and one of our participants asked us to imagine a field of sunflowers, an entire mountainside of flowers moving their yellow heads in response to the moving sun. So too, she continued, we have the power to alter our reactions. We are not stagnant. We can move, react, change. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of Auschwitz, wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. In it, he explores the questions of how are we to cope with debilitating suffering? What are we to do when life does hand us more than we can cope with? During the Holocaust, when every aspect of humanity was stripped from the prisoners, the only thing that remained within their control was how they reacted to the situation. Frankl writes, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, to choose his attitude, to choose one's way. And he explains further, human freedom is not freedom from conditions, but freedom to take a stand towards conditions. We do not choose our suffering or the diseases that afflict our loved ones, but we do choose our attitude. We do choose our way. The principal of Ori's school, Kent Kruger, recently sent out an email with parenting tips. He reminded us all that as a survival technique, our brains are wired to pay 3 to 5 times more attention to the negative than the positive. As I am sure you all know, our tendency to only hear the negative is why we are told to offer praise before criticism. Mr. Kruger emphasized that turning towards the positive is a learned skill that we need to teach our children and ourselves. They come home complaining about the friend who wouldn't play with them at recess, he cautions, but really the rest of their day was amazing. You must direct them, teach them that they have a choice on what to focus. Michael J. Thompson called this don't interview for pain, meaning don't ask questions that corner people into dwelling on the negative aspects of their lives. Perhaps they've moved on. Rather, ask open questions and see where it goes. I'm not saying that we should ignore our pain. We do need to speak it. But when we are done, I want us to encourage each other towards the light, rather than abide by our human tendency to dwell in the darkness. Back to Ori's modeling for us. She knows well that she cannot unwrite the fictional tragedies that occur during the Battle of Hogwarts. But neither does she need to read that part of the story again and again and again. Rather, we, like she, can point our attention to the magical discoveries of Book 1, a flying motorcycle and a delicious, albeit squashed, birthday cake. We can choose to dwell on the memory of a friend appearing at the moment he was needed, and from that experience draw inspiration and motivation to be good, responsive friends. We have some choice in the recitation and recollection of our own books of life. And we can be like my mother, who faces each morning with blankness, where there should be a plethora of vibrant details and soothing memories, yet in response declares each smell, taste, and touch the best ever. Teshuvah, turning. We cannot control all the parts of our lives, but we can control our response. Now let us turn to the second of the three answers which are given, tefillah, prayer. Prayer in the Jewish tradition is an opportunity to rant, to rail, to beg, to argue, to plead, to grieve, to thank, to request, to notice. But in Judaism, prayer is expression without the expectation of an answer. There is no magical hand which will deliver or change or intercede based on your prayers or your needs. Yes, prayer is a powerful outlet for expression, but more than that, it is an opportunity for connection. When you know our prayers, you are able to experience the power of your voice joining with mine, joining with everyone else in this room, joining with Jews around the world and throughout history. When you join your voice with mine, with our people, you are connecting into a community so much larger than yourself. What is prayer? Prayer is a pathway to community. It is a tangible reminder that you are not alone. We stand here with you. We do not have answers. We cannot change your suffering, but we will hold you. The meaning of the prayers is not in the translation. The meaning is not found in the words, but rather in the act of togetherness, of saying the words. The most important part of Yom Kippur is its subtle message found in the act of Jews coming together to pray. It is this: you are not alone. We, your family, are with you. We stand as your equals beside you, around you. We hold you. We love you. Teshuvah, turning. Tefillah, prayer. And finally, tzedakah. Tzedakah is the act of turning outward to find meaning. Tzedakah is noticing that there are other people in need, other people's hurt which could be ameliorated by your action, your kindness. Tzedakah is giving back, engaging in. It is how we turn inward pain into outward action, and through that action, perhaps, the pain slowly dissipates. I was startled the other day when I realized how many people I know personally who have started foundations in the memory of their child. What these families, the Solomons, the Adlers, the Dreskins, and the Manns model is that giving back to our community when we ourselves are in pain leads us back towards life. It reminds us that we still have a purpose here, despite our own palpable suffering. We remain effective and affective. Why do people give donations to our congregation or to any nonprofit? Yes, they give because they believe in what we do and want to perpetuate it. True. They give because they want other people who cannot afford it to have access. That too is true. But really? Really? They give because we give, because it feels good to give. Giving makes us feel part of something. It makes us feel needed. It makes us feel alive. The rabbis teach that even the poorest among us, Even the ones subsisting on gifts from the charity plate should perform acts of tzedakah. Why? Because we all have something the community needs. Rachel Small, one of our congregants, goes to Morning Star Assisted Living once a month and leads a Shabbat celebration for the residents. Craig Kreskis goes into schools and reads to underprivileged children. Kimberly Gilbert volunteers her time to register voters. One of our members recently donated a kidney with no idea who the recipient will be. I could go on, but I won't. The point is, tzedakah allows us to engage, and through that engagement, through that giving back, we find meaning in the world, and we create meaning in our lives. Tzedakah, giving, we are needed. Tefillah, prayer. We have a community who will hold us. Teshuvah, turning. We have a choice of how we respond to life. People often ask me how my mother is doing. My mother is aware that she is slowly losing her mind. How does she cope? What does she choose? Last week, my mother, Sadie, and I were rocking in chairs in front of her house. My dad was seated facing us. We were talking about our days, as we do. Mom likes to hear about Sadie's friends and her teachers and what she is learning in class, even though she can't really follow the answers. At a pause in the conversation, Mom leaned in and whispered to me, with a very slight smile on her face, "I have to ask you, who is that strange man sitting there?" I looked at my father, and then I looked at my mother, and I took a very deep breath before I asked, "Are you joking with me?" And she laughed, said, "Yes, but I had you, didn't I?" We all laughed, and you could see how proud she was that she pulled off her spoof. I reminded her that she would probably remember Dad the longest, as well as Sadie and me, so she was kind of stuck with us. And she said, "Well, that's okay with me. I love you," as she kissed Sadie's head and squeezed my hand. That is the most important thing.